on April 2nd, 2025, Nintendo held a Switch 2 Direct where they revealed that GameCube games will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 on launch. They called this Nintendo Classics for Nintendo Switch 2. And in this reveal, we got 3 games. We got The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX. Now, for a long time, Wind Waker was only available to either play on the original GameCube or on the Wii U via The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD. And it's great that this game is available on the Switch Online service, which is around $50 with the expansion pack. And that's a yearly payment, which is great. And then we got Soul Calibur 2, a great fighting game. I haven't really played too much of it, so I can't really speak that much about it. I just don't know too much about this game. And F-Zero GX. And F-Zero just hasn't gotten the love it deserves, especially by Nintendo. We haven't got a new F-Zero game in like 20 years, which is unfortunate because F-Zero is actually such a badass game. It's so fun, and I've had a lot of fun playing through F-Zero GX. I've been playing it pretty much every day, and it's great. I've been playing Wind Waker as well, and I'll get into Wind Waker later on in this video because I do have a lot to say about that game. But I kind of just wanted to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 and all the different GameCube games that we've gotten on the platform. But this is not the first time that GameCube has been put on the Nintendo Switch. If we go back to the original Nintendo Switch, we've gotten a couple releases of GameCube games on the Switch. These are kind of more in the form of remakes and remasters and ports, but still, they're GameCube games. We got Metroid Prime Remastered, which was $40 for a basically full-on remake of the game. Now, still, it runs beautifully, it plays beautifully, it feels so fresh and new, while also keeping that magic that the original game had. Then in 2020, we got Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which was a collection of 3D Mario games, and one of those games being Super Mario Sunshine, and this was kind of like I feel like it's more of a port, because they didn't really remake anything, and didn't feel like a remaster either. Like, the game looks good. It looks great on the Switch. It just felt more like a port, and this was the only way you could play Super Mario Sunshine on modern platforms. Now, 3D All-Stars is a delisted game. You can't buy it officially from Nintendo anymore. You have to buy it from an aftermarket like eBay, Amazon Marketplace, a retro game store possibly, and that's upwards of, $90, which surprisingly is like the price of a good GameCube game, unfortunately. We also got Pikmin 1 and 2 released as a dual pack. This was a remaster for $60, and this is probably the definitive way to play these games. They run great. They look great. The graphics, just everything just feels so fresh and new. Kind of like where I was kind of going with Metroid Prime Remastered. This just feels like the best way to play these games. But anyway, back to the Nintendo Switch 2. So, I want to hop straight into this. So we have all the games that are available on the Switch 2's online service for GameCube. So we have Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Wario World, Luigi's Mansion, Chibi Robo, Plug Into Adventure, Soul Calibur 2, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Super Mario Strikers. A pretty good selection here. So there's 9 games, and they've released 9 games within the year that the Switch 2 has been out. I would assume that they probably are going to start rolling things out a little bit quicker. Hopefully, we can build up a pretty heavy library of GameCube games on this. But I kind of just wanted to take a look at each game, play these games for a little bit, and kind of just give my honest opinions and feelings on the game. So, I've played a couple of these, not all the way through. Now, I've played Luigi's Mansion. That's a pretty good game. I haven't played too much of Wind Waker. I do know that Wind Waker is held in such high regard. And for good reason. It is an amazing game. If you have not played Wind Waker, it's definitely one of those games that you need to experience. It's just so good. It's so good. But let's hop into Wario World. Now, Wario World is basically a 3D/2D platformer collectathon type of thing. It's very fun. I've had a lot of fun playing around with this game. It's just been a blast, and that's the thing I like about GameCube is a lot of these games are just timeless, and they're games that you can just hop into at any time, and you'll have a great time. Especially coming home from work, hopping on the game for a little bit. This is such a great experience, and it's so amazing to finally get GameCube on the Switch. It's something I've been wanting for a long time, especially since the last couple years that I've had a Switch. I've been hoping that they would put some sort of GameCube on the Switch, and now that we have it, it's just a surreal feeling, and I'm so happy. But let's hop into Wario World. To me, Wario World is kind of just interesting because this was like Wario's first and only 3D platformer. It was kind of genre blending because you have beat 'em up, exploring, puzzle solving. This is really all you could ever need in a Wario game, right? And yeah, the game is about Wario. He's in his newly built castle. It's full of treasure, and in these riches that he has is an ancient artifact that they call the Black Jewel. It's basically an evil sentient gem that feeds on greed and desire, and later on in the game, at nighttime, the Black Jewel awakens. It transforms Wario's treasure into some monsters, and it basically just rips apart his castle to shreds. Wario later wakes up and he's like, what the hell? Because all his fortunes are gone, and he immediately just fucking goes out super angry to get all his treasures back. Because, all his money and everything is gone. And there's like 4 different worlds in this game that are created by the Black Jewel's power. And it's pretty cool. Each world is kind of its own thing. It contains 2 major stages, and then those are followed by their own boss battle. Now these get harder and harder as it goes on, and then between each area is a central hub that will open as you progress throughout the game. And the combat kind of feels different than something you would play in like Super Mario Sunshine. There's like shoulder charges and ground pounds and pile drivers and enemy throws, and there's this cool attack that lets you like open gear switches and stuff called a wild wing swing ding attack. You basically pick up an enemy and you can swing them against the gear, and it will allow you to spin it pretty much. So there's a boss early in the game called Dynamite, and it's basically like this giant dinosaur that towers over Wario, and you kind of have to like climb and dodge and attack, and you kind of have to plan everything out. You can't just jump on his head or punch him a bunch of times, which I think is really cool. There's also this boxing monster called Red Brief J, and it's basically just a parody of heavyweight fighters from the time. The whole fight for that one, it's positioned around timing and where you're at, and you kind of have to not, take all these fucking punches to the face. And then there is a final fight with the Black Jewel, and it is probably one of the strangest fights that I've ever seen in my life. So the sentient gem basically, it just transforms into like this monstrous creature that's covered in eyes and tentacles, and it's just fucking gross. I don't want to talk about it. Now, to end this, there is no sequel to Wario World. And I think that's really strange because Wario World did sell pretty good numbers, and it has a pretty dedicated fan base. One of the things is the game was actually developed by Treasure and not by Nintendo's internal development, which it's kind of weird. And then eventually Treasure just started becoming less active, and no other studio wanted to pick up a Wario World game for some reason. And I feel like the lack of a sequel for Wario World has more to do with like internal things than it does with a lack of interest. I feel like people would be interested in getting another Wario World game. It's a really good 3D platformer, combat, exploration, puzzle game. It's a lot of fun. It's challenging, yes, but this is one of those games that it is short. It's about 4 to 7 hours depending on, essentially you, right? Just depending on if you are just speedrunning this game, if you're 100%ing it, or you're taking your time, whatever the case may be. This is one of those games that it's a bit short, but the experience is there, and it is a really solid experience. I really do recommend this game, so if you have a Switch 2 and you have the expansion pack, or you're thinking about getting the expansion pack, this is definitely one of those games that I would recommend checking out. It's a blast. F-Zero originally released on the Super Nintendo back in 1990. It's one of the first games to really implement and use the Super Nintendo's 3D technology, and F-Zero really introduced us to fast-paced, anti-gravity racing at blazing fast speeds through these twisting, mind-bending tracks that were above giant cities and alien worlds. We were also introduced to Captain Falcon, who was a mysterious bounty hunter, and he would actually become more famous through games like Super Smash Bros. Than his own F-Zero games. Then in 1998 we got F-Zero X on a Nintendo 64. F-Zero X was the first 3D F-Zero, and it built so much because of that. It was just so much better. Fully 3D racing, there were better controls, better mechanics, smoother gameplay, and with that, the content of the game just felt much deeper, and it was just an upgrade. More speed, more races, more fun, action. Then F-Zero GX was a solely dedicated story to Captain Falcon. Now the game opens up after Black Shadow loses an important Grand Prix race. His master Deathborn is really mad about it. Now Deathborn catches Black Shadow and basically gives him an ultimatum. You can either win the upcoming race or you're a failure. That's essentially what he says. So Falcon prepares for the upcoming race. Later in the game, Falcon is pulled into the events of the race and learns that the race is actually much larger than just this tournament. Samurai Goro is one of his greatest rivals, and he challenges Falcon. And another thing, there's some really cool underground racing levels that I really did enjoy. They felt really fresh and new. And there's one level that I really did struggle with. It's when Black Shadow captures Falcon. Now, in this level, there's a bomb attached to the Blue Falcon, which is your vehicle. Now, if you slow down, the device will explode. And in this level, you basically have to keep your speed while avoiding obstacles and try not to, get dead. And with that, after Falcon wins the championship, Deathborn reveals the truth to him. The champion belts possess extraordinary power, cosmic power even, and combining them would grant him unimaginable abilities. He intends to use his power to essentially kind of dominate and take over the universe and basically become a god. So Falcon defeats Deathborn, and he encounters these mysterious beings, basically known as the creators. They're entities, and they imply that they're responsible for the events from the very beginning, all of the events that happen in this game. They challenge Falcon to one final race. Now, if he loses this race, they get his soul. Now, if he wins, he proves himself to basically be superior to all the forces controlling reality. Now, I want to talk about the modes of this game. There's several. So, we have Grand Prix, which is 3 different levels of cups that you can race in. They range from, being really easy to, this game's a bitch. And then we have story mode, which is just really brutal. We have time attack, which is just basically just allowing you to test how much you've mastered your skills, versus it's just multiplayer. And I personally think it's the most fun way to play. This game feels like an amplified, more brutal type of kart racer, especially from this era. Garage mode is just a vehicle customizer. But yeah, this game is a blast to play through. It's got a great story, trolls are great. The gameplay is so much fun. This is very memorable, and it's truly one of the best Gamecube games, and it's extremely underrated. Blazing fast, it's difficult, it's brutal, it's a challenge, but it's not one of these games where it's not fun brutal. It's one of those games that it makes you want to keep going and going and going, and it's very arcadey, and it reminds me of more of the classic Nintendo era. And I really hope Nintendo sees the positive feedback that bringing F-Zero GX to Nintendo Switch Online has been. I think a lot of people were very happy with this because we do have F-Zero on the Switch already. Now I'm not sure if it's still on there, but for a while we had F-Zero 99, which was a multiplayer game on Switch, and this was essentially the only way you could play this is if you have a Switch Online membership, and F-Zero 99 was you versus 99 other players racing at the same time, and it was done in the style of the Super Nintendo F-Zero. It was very fun. But we haven't had an F-Zero game for the past, 20 years. I believe the last true game we had, if you're not counting the Switch version, is on the Game Boy Advance, which is really unfortunate because F-Zero, I feel like they could do a lot with it still. And I know that they've said, why would we make a new one when there's nowhere to go? You could just make another one. I would like to see another one. whether it's, a Switch Online thing or it's a new game. I would kind of like to see it done in the style that they're doing with the new Star Fox game, which is, obviously it's remaking something, but still, I wouldn't mind an F-Zero remake or an expansion to something we've already had, expanding on GX or X or something. I think that would be really cool. I don't know if Nintendo would really do something like that, because I feel like they really just don't have an interest in doing anything with F-Zero, which is unfortunate because it is truly, in my opinion, one of Nintendo's best games. Not just on GameCube, but just in general. Soul Calibur 2. Now this is just going to be a quick little review of the game. It's a very fun, arcadey type of fighting game. Obviously we got Link here, and there's about 20 other characters that you have as soon as you boot up the game, and you can unlock more as you go on. There's a bunch of special moves, and it's pretty fun. Now it's set up in like a stage type of format, so each stage you fight the character that in the game twice, and if you die, you get to just restart, the stage that you're on. And as you go on, each character that you're fighting, it gets a little bit more difficult. I found it getting pretty, not intense, but definitely more difficult after like stage 6. And this is just a really fun game to play like with your friends on a Saturday night, go on the couch, have some pizza, and kind of just see who can win. Super Mario Strikers and Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Now these are not going to be in-depth reviews either. The in-depth kind of reviews I've been doing throughout this video, it's kind of more like games that I actually did enjoy and care a lot about. Neither one of these two titles were really my type of game. Super Mario Strikers is more of a multiplayer type of sports game, and I'm not one for sports games. I don't think they're bad or anything, but I've never really been into sports games. I've never really enjoyed them that much. But this game, it has some good things going for it. You can see the opening cutscene here. It's pretty good by GameCube standards, and by early 2000 standards, this looks pretty solid for 3D animation for a cutscene, and, Wario was shaking his ass there. But this is basically, you got all the Mario characters, they're all going head to head, and you basically pick a team, and then you pick your secondary, and then you can have 2 players or you can have 1 player, and if you play with 1 player, you're obviously playing with CPUs, which can be a little frustrating because sometimes CPUs are a little bit overpowered, and they definitely have to jump over you. But I don't think that this is inherently a bad game or anything. This just really isn't the type of game that I would personally play. It's nice to have, like, if I invite a couple of my buddies over or something, we might play this, because this is definitely one of those types of games. Like, sure, you can have fun playing this by yourself. Like, there is fun to be had. There's different modes, and there's like a couple different modes. We got like Grudge Match, Cup Battles, Super Cup Battles, Custom Battles, Strikers 101. Now the Super Cup Battles you gotta unlock by, playing and playing. I didn't really dive too deep into this. I think I played for about 40 minutes, and I was just not really feeling it. But like I said, you pick your character, and then you pick your secondary, and then you pick, what side you want to be on, whether you want to be on this side or that side. That's if you're playing single player. And I played this. I played the soccer, and it's fine. It's fine. This is just not my thing. I didn't have a bad time or anything. I just genuinely wasn't feeling it, and it's just another sports title for me. Not a bad game or nothing. I'm happy that Nintendo put this on there, because I'll take any GameCube game. Just certain games I'm just not that into. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Now this is another game that I just was not that big of a fan of. I played this for about an hour or so, and I'm not going to dive too deep into the story or anything, because I honestly don't fucking care. I'm not even trying to, shit on the game or anything. Like, that's not what this is all about. This is just my honest opinion and my feelings on games that are on the Switch Online service for GameCube. I like RPGs, but this style of RPG just was not really my thing. It wasn't bad. Like I said before with Mario Strikers, it's not bad or anything. Just certain games are just not really my type of thing. But, I see why people love this game. It can be engaging. Like, I did have fun playing it. It just wasn't, I just wasn't feeling, really immersed or anything by this game. But it's fine. I've played a couple Fire Emblem games on the Switch Online service, and my opinion is pretty much the same across all of them. Like, they're alright. I can see why they're loved and everything. Like, I get it, but again, you know, this just genuinely isn't my thing. If it's your thing, that's great, but these types of RPGs are just not the type of game that I would typically play. But again, I'm happy that this is on the platform, and you know, if this is your type of game, you know, I recommend it. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness was a sequel to Pokemon Colosseum, and it basically expanded on everything that game had introduced. Pokemon XD was a darker version of the Pokemon franchise. This is where Pokemon were being corrupted into shadow Pokemon and being used as weapons by a criminal organization known as Cypher. Now, the game starts with a massive cargo ship called the SS Libra getting attacked by a terrifying version of Lugia known as XD001 or Shadow Lugia. The Pokemon literally lifts the ship out of the ocean and carries it away. We move on to Michael, who's a young trainer living on the Ore region with his mom and Professor Crane. Cypher kidnaps Professor Crane because of his work on the Purification Chamber, which is just a machine that restores Shadow Pokemon back to normal. Michael receives a snag machine and sets out to stop, you know, Cypher's plans. And there's just some little missions that I want to talk about real quick. We kind of have to rescue the kidnapped scientist, infiltrate certain enemy facilities, we got to investigate the Shadow Pokemon factories, discover Cypher's leadership, track down the missing ship, and we also got to find the secrets to the Shadow Lugia. Now, later in the game, we are at Cedardark, where Michael battles Cypher's leader, Grievo, and ultimately confronts Shadow Lugia itself. And personally, I feel like this game is just its own unique experience. We don't have a lot of the colorful forests and routes of Kanto or Hoenn, and it kind of just feels like a desert wasteland, or Phoenix City. It's a futuristic oasis that's completely surrounded by desert, or the central hub, which is just a rough mining town that's got criminals, battlers, and shady deals. And it has such a Wild West atmosphere, which is something that's, I don't know if it's too common in Pokemon, you know, history. And the Agate Village is a peaceful forest where there's Pokemon purification. That's a huge part of it. And the village kind of serves a spiritual counterbalance to the corruption that's being spread by Cypher himself. Now we have Gaton Port, which is a bustling harbor city and probably one of the largest locations in the game. This area kind of acts like a transportation hub, and it kind of houses a lot of different side activities. Cypher's key lair is another pretty memorable dungeon. It's filled with operatives, puzzles, and shadow Pokemon battles. Lots of really cool battles. Now here's the good shit. Here's the final dungeon. It's grim, it's dark, it's isolated, it's intimidating. It serves as Cypher's headquarters, and it's kind of irritatingly hard. Most Pokemon games revolve around getting badges. This game has more of a mission structure, and how you progress is dependent on the missions, like investigating Cypher activity, traveling throughout or uncovering Cypher's operation. Finding the SS Libra is one of the long-running mysteries that directly ties into Shadow Lugia. Many of the missions involve sneaking into Cypher facilities and defeating administrators. Purifying Shadow Pokemon is another good one. And every Shadow Pokemon represents a side mission or a mini mission of its own. Personally, I feel like this mission-based approach this game has gives it an RPG feeling that basically the handheld games don't have as much of that. Shadow Pokemon are creatures whose hearts have been artificially closed. They use exclusive shadow attacks. They cannot gain experience. They often possess pretty powerful stats. Catching Shadow Pokemon just gives it an increase over the Colosseum's roster. Now, in terms of designs and different Pokemon, I think the most memorable one is, of course, Shadow Lugia, known as XD001. Basically, the face of the game. It's on the cover and everything, right? So it's got dark coloration, glowing eyes, and this exclusive Shadow Blast attack that feels pretty fucking threatening. Now, in terms of the actual roster, these are just some that I picked on, and I'm probably going to butcher the names, so I'm sorry. We got Eevee, Jolteon, Vaporeon, Espeon, Umbreon, Salamence, Dragonite, Metagross, Snorlax, Lapras? I don't know. Houndoom, Arcane, Electabuzz, Magmar, Rhydon, Scyther, Heracross, Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, Lugia. So this game also appeared early This game also featured early appearances of Munchlax and Bonsly before Generation 5 had officially launched. Most of the encounters are double battles. I think this is a better experience than the single battles that dominate, the handheld games. So now you have to balance team synergy, status effects, target priority, protect usage, earthquake combinations, spread attacks, all those types of things. There's also some pretty good side content in this game. Notably Mount Battle, a lengthy challenge tower, which is around 100 consecutive battles. To actually complete it, it would take too much damn time. I don't have patience. Pokespots is where you leave food in certain areas and attract wild Pokemon. Now, Ore lacks traditional wild encounters. Pokespots provide, better chance of getting an encounter. But I played this game in depth. It was pretty fun, and the story was really good. It's not really what I would expect for like a Pokemon game, but I love it. The battles were great. The Pokemon selection, the roster was good. I liked all the missions. I played a little bit of the side missions, but not too much. And I'm really happy that Nintendo had decided to add this to their GameCube selection. Like I said, I'm not much of a Pokemon guy. I've played a couple of them. I've played like Fire Red and Emerald, Sapphire, Diamond, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Red and Blue, and a couple of the 3DS games. I can't think of them right now. And I've also played a couple on Switch. Those Switch ones are fucking awful. Don't argue with me in the comments or something. That they're not. Like Scarlet and Violet are terrible. Like they do run a lot better on the Switch 2, and I have played those on the Switch 2. Those run a lot better, but still, they have issues. But yeah, this is an amazing experience. Now, I played through this in its entirety. This is like a 14-hour game, so it is a longer game. But I think the amount of content in the story and the depth and the characters and everything that this game has going for it, it makes up for it. It's a good length. It's got a lot of good things going for it. And this is one of the more rare GameCube games. Now this game for a long time would run you upwards of $200, because when I would go to like retro game stores to maybe buy some games for the collection or whatever, I would see this on the shelves, and this was like a $230+ game, which is expensive, insanely expensive. But now the game has, kind of like went down a little bit in price. Last time I checked, a few weeks ago, it was on eBay for around $170, $190, which isn't great, but it's not as bad as it was. And whether you're playing this on the Switch 2 or you're playing it on your GameCube or whatever, it's a great experience. And I'm excited for Pokemon Coliseum when they put that on there. Chibi Robo Plug-Into Adventure was released towards the end of the GameCube's life. It sold okay numbers, and the game is basically about this robot who's about 10 centimeters tall, and his whole purpose is just make people happy. This is probably one of the most emotionally and touching games that I've probably ever played. Anyway, the game begins with a young Jenny Sanderson basically receiving a Chibi Robo as a birthday gift from her dad, George. Now, you would think this would be a happy occasion, it's her birthday, but the family is actually falling apart. So George, her father's unemployed and spends money ridiculously irresponsibly. Helen, his wife, is frustrated. She's overwhelmed. Jenny, the daughter, hides behind a little frog costume and just speaks in ribbits instead of normal English conversation. So the family doesn't really communicate with each other. Now, Chibi Robo explores the house. He learns about the emotional struggle affecting every member in the house. And slowly the game reveals these hidden tensions, regrets, and forgotten memories, trauma, all those different things. The deeper that you travel into the house, you realize every room has these secrets, and you start cleaning, and eventually you learn basically this game is more about loneliness and hope. And one of the coolest things that I discovered is that every toy in the house comes alive after the humans go to sleep, and it basically becomes like kind of this Toy Story type of thing. Action figures are holding meetings, there's toy soldiers that are having wars, kitchen toys have relationships, there's dinosaurs arguing, frogs dance, there's space toys that dream of adventure. Every toy in this game has a personality. There's a bunch of really cool abilities like the Chibi Copter that allows you to fly and reach previous locked areas. And another thing is the cleaning sequences. There's a lot of them. You pick up trash, there's crumbs that you vacuum, you scrub stains, you find lost objects, you help the toys solve problems. And every good deed that you do gives you happy points. Now, those happy points obviously increase Chibi Robo's ranking and unlock new opportunities and allow him to become the top Chibi. Now, later on in the game, Chibi Robo discovers the mysterious Giga Robo. Now, that's basically a massive robot hidden underneath the house. Unlike Chibi Robo, Giga Robo represents the family's forgotten past and unresolved problems and trauma, like we talked about earlier. And much of this game's mystery revolves around him and his connection to the actual family. The Giga Robo storyline adds a lot of emotional weight and basically ties together all these ends of the game's narrative. I feel like this game is a classic and it just does not get enough love from Nintendo. There's so much charm and nothing else really feels like it. There's nothing else on the GameCube that feels like this. And this is just one of those cozy, comforting games, kind of like Animal Crossing. Yes, I feel like the concept is extremely bizarre, but it's a cozy experience, and this is one where you can just take it at your own time, take it at your own pace, and there's just a huge level of emotion. And yeah, this game, it's just amazing. It's a lovely experience. So I really, top of the list, highly recommend check out this game. It's just a game that you don't have to worry about progressing super fast. You can kind of just play it at your own pace and do your own exploration, and it's just a very touching experience. The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker has a story that begins hundreds of years after the events of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Now, this is when the hero of time had disappeared, evil returns, there's no hero coming back to save anybody, so there's no champion to save the kingdom. The gods were left to make a desperate decision. They flooded Hyrule. The mountains would eventually become islands, valleys disappearing beneath the sea, the whole civilization basically disappearing under the ocean. Right? And I feel like this premise kind of makes Wind Waker one of the darkest games in the entire Zelda franchise. The whole society is just dead. Everything's dead. So we have Link here, and he begins his adventure living as an island boy on Outset Island. The only thing he really cares about is celebrating his birthday. He's got his grandma and his sister. They both love him. Later on in the game, his sister gets kidnapped by a giant bird, and she gets carried away. So that sets off Link's quest, and the only thing he really gives a fuck about is saving his sister. And that's his whole motivation, and that kind of sets off the whole premise of this game and everything like that. Later on, Link meets Tetra and her pirate crew. Now, initially meeting her, she seems to be a confident pirate captain. She's independent, sarcastic, and far different from a lot of the previous incarnations of Zelda. Their relationship is one of the highlights of this game, and they spend a lot of time kind of developing the relationship between Tetra and Link, and I think it adds a lot of depth to these two characters. Now, the Great Sea serves as the game's overworld, and unlike previous Zelda games, where you would cross fields and mountains, more set around sailing across islands. Now, each island contains mysteries, side quests, treasures, other characters, and secrets, and I think the whole sailing thing kind of makes the world feel even bigger than it really is. Every part of the map really seemed to contain something else within it, and I think that's amazing. And Wind Waker has some of the best dungeons in Zelda history, in my opinion. Like the first major one has some volcanic chambers, lava flows, and obviously the heroic rescue of Valu's attendants. Then Forbidden Woods is basically a massive forest dungeon filled with plants and environmental puzzles. It feels completely different from Dragon Roost, kind of showing the variety that this game really is offering. Tower of the Gods is one of the most symbolic dungeons in Zelda history, in my opinion. Basically, the gods are testing Link to determine whether he's worthy or not of becoming a hero. Then Earth Temple is a haunting dungeon featuring spirits and ancient mysteries and ghosts and all that. The Wind Temple is this huge, massive, puzzle-filled structure emphasizing cooperation and exploration, and each dungeon contributes to the game's growing sense that Link is uncovering this forgotten history of a lost world beneath the sea, that his original kingdom of Hyrule is there. It's untouched, it's frozen in time, it's silent. The kingdom from Ocarina of Time still exists right below. Ganondorf is no longer, the guy seeking power. He's regretful, he's sad. He remembers everything that he lost. He's grieving. And one of his most famous speeches in this game is explaining that he envied Hyrule's winds. His homeland was harsh and unforgiving. He said Hyrule is beautiful, captivating. And maybe this lets us understand why he became who he really is. And in playing this game, I kind of feel like this game is about accepting change and letting go of the past. Many of the characters in this game want to restore the past, but the past it can't return. The old Hyrule that everybody knew is gone. The kingdom, it had its chance, and I feel like the ending of this game is one of the greatest finales that Nintendo has ever created. Rain is pouring across the battlefield. The ocean is crashing all around everybody. Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf face one another as the fate of Hyrule hangs. This battle feels personalized. It's emotional. It's dragging on. It's legendary. It's everything that it needs to be. And when Link delivers the final strike in the battle, it's one of the most iconic moments in the entire franchise. That frozen image of Ganondorf is unforgettable. And I think this game is really about a world that's already ended. They want to preserve the hope they once had after losing everything, but they can't. It's true that the past cannot always be brought back. And it also ties into the fact that the ocean is one of the greatest unexplored things in the world. And this game was controversial for a lot of different reasons, like the art style, that was a big thing, and it just didn't feel like the traditional Zelda game. But, more than 20 years after this game came out, everybody's like, yeah, this game it's great, it's amazing. There's storytelling, the world building is great, the music, exploration, the art style. I think everything that this game has going for it just adds a lot. And I'm not the biggest Zelda fan. It's not my favorite, but I played pretty much all the games. I'm pretty sure I might be missing a couple, but I always thought that Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were the best Zelda games. Those were my favorites for a while. When I had got a Switch and they had the Nintendo 64 online, and they had the Zelda games on there, I played the out of those. Those were some of my favorite experiences on Nintendo systems. But playing through Wind Waker, and this is my first time ever playing Wind Waker, is on the Switch 2. And I gotta say that this was an amazing experience. It introduced me to so much that, I didn't think it was possible for a game to give this much immersion and storytelling and this feeling of emptiness and loneliness and wanting to bring back everything that you once knew, but you can't, and you kind of just have to take everything at face value and realize that you can't have everything that you want. Sometimes you just have to see things for how they are and accept that even if it's all you've known is gone. And I think that's one of the biggest themes in this game, is just acceptance. The final game we have to talk about is Luigi's Mansion. I'm not going to go into depth about this game because I've played this game quite a bit. I played it all the way through already on the Switch 2, and then I've played this a couple times by itself. It's really just a ghost hunting game with Luigi. It's a very fun game. You have a lot of fun with this game. It's really cool to see it on the Switch because we have actually got the other series on the Switch before, like Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. So this is a really fun game, and if you're into the ghost exploration games, I would recommend this game. But yeah, it's a pretty fun game. It's just Luigi ghost hunting and that type of thing. Yo, what is up, guys? Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making this video, even though it took a pretty long time to make. It took me pretty much the entire week with editing and gameplay footage and voiceover. Let me know what GameCube games you guys would want to see on the Switch, and some of your favorite GameCube games that you've played. I love the GameCube. I personally think it's Nintendo's best console. It's just such a blast. It's been such a blast to go through all these games. So yeah, see y'all later.